as well. Okay, thank you everyone so much for joining us today for our last and live Q&A webinar for the 100K Lima IE U.S. Brazil Innovation Fund Grant Competition. My name is Mariana Cabrera Figueroa. I am the program officer for the 100,000 Strong in the Americas Innovation Fund. And we're here today to talk about the U.S. Brazil Grant Competition, which is open until the end of July and has been made possible by our partners at the U.S. Department of State, at Partners of the Americas, and at Senai. So thank you everyone for joining us and taking the time out of your day to be here today. Just some notes before we actually get started. The recording and the materials from this webinar will be available to you within 5 to 6 business days, and that will be up on our website, and it will be sent to you in a follow-up email. This presentation is going to be in English on my part, but we do have an interpreter with us today, and you can click on the Portuguese channel or the English channel of the webinar through the interpretation box, which should be at the bottom of your screen, a little globe. It should look something like this. And you'll be able to hear the presentation in either language. And you can also ask questions in English or in Portuguese. We do have here some of our friends from Brazil who will be helping us answer the questions in Portuguese. But if we're not able to answer the questions today, then any questions that are submitted will be answered through a question and answer report that will be sent to you through that follow-up email. So please submit any questions that you have through the Q&A box in the Zoom window, and please do not use the chat box to send any questions. But do feel free to use the chat box to introduce yourselves to your colleagues or anyone else here at the webinar, and let us know where you're coming from, which institutions you're a part of, and maybe if you're looking for a partner, then feel free to introduce yourself there. So for the agenda for today, we'll begin with a quick introduction to our donor partners, and then we'll cover what the 100K Innovation Fund is. This will be followed by a section on how to apply, eligibility, and requirements for this specific competition. And then we'll talk very quickly about proposal evaluation criteria. And at the end, we'll have enough time for questions and answers. If you did miss any of our previous webinars, we covered how to apply in an entire webinar about 2 months ago. Applying and finding a partner, and writing a 100K Lima grant proposal. And these past webinars can be found on our website. The videos would be under our video gallery under webinars, and you can also find it on our webinars page under past webinars. Okay. So let me go ahead and pass the microphone to my colleague here, Victor Moscoso from the 100K team, for him to introduce himself.
Thank you, Mariana. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to attend this webinar, and on behalf of Partners of the Americas and the 100 Strong in the Americas team, we welcome you all to talk about this U.S. Brazil Grant Competition with a focus on climate and inclusive education. We want to thank especially our partners in this endeavor, Senai, the Department of State, and the U.S. Embassy in Brazil. We have representatives from Senai participating today, Gabriela Ferreira Martins Godoy and Gustavo Dovalle Diaz Rosa. Thank you both for all your support for this program. And our colleagues and friends from the U.S. Embassy, Ruth Uri and Leonardo Nardon, who also has been supporting this competition. We want to share that Brazil is a leader in the 100 Strong in the Americas program, leading the number of higher education institutions, students, and faculty that participate in this program. And this is particularly important for 2024, as Brazil and the U.S. are celebrating the 200th anniversary of diplomatic relations. So we want to thank you all for making this grand competition possible, and we look forward to see your proposals and to support your academic exchanges that improves the relationship between the U.S. and Brazil. And thank you to the whole 100 Strong team and Mariana for conducting this webinar. Good afternoon again. Back to you.
Thank you, Victor. And our colleagues from the U.S. Department of State and from the embassy will be joining soon. But we're having some technical difficulties, which happens once in a while. But we would love to hear from Gustavo about yourself and about Senai.
Thank you, Mariana. Thank you, Victor. Thank you to everyone that took part of this latest webinar. And I'd like to express our thanks to the entire partners of the Americas team, the U.S. Embassy here in Brasilia, and the great promoter of this initiative, our friend Maggie from the U.S. State Department. So this initiative is extremely important for us, for Senai, because it's a kind of tool that connecting us with the U.S. College institution. It's a kind of bridge between our college here in Senai and our innovation institute and the Americas Institute, the university, the colleges in U.S. And this is, we understand that's a kind of link, and that allow us to be better professionals, better citizens, global citizens. That I think is the aim of the main proposal of the 100,000 strongs. And as the deadline for submitting the project proposal is fast approaching, I think we get for this section need to focus on question and answer how to be applied for successful project submissions. So I don't want to extend it a lot here, and I'll give you back, Mariana, and let's move on with the agenda. Thank you very much again.
Thank you so much, Gustavo. It's nice to hear a little bit about yourself and about Senai. Thank you again for your support in the entire competition, and hopefully moving forward with the review process and all of the steps that come next. As I mentioned before, our colleagues are having a little bit of technical difficulties joining, but hopefully we'll hear from them later on in the webinar. But I think I'll go ahead and begin at least the information portion of the webinar. Okay, so a little bit of a background on what the 100,000 Strong in the Americas Innovation Fund is. For short, 100K Innovation Fund. So we are the public-private sector partnership between the Bureau of Western Hemisphere Affairs at the U.S. Department of State, the U.S. embassies in different countries, and partners of the Americas, working with other companies, foundations, government entities, and academic networks throughout the U.S., Latin America, and the Caribbean. And our goals do align with State Department priorities, which are to build institutional capacity, increase access to inclusive education opportunities, stimulate economic prosperity, and contribute to workforce development. And so that's what we try to do with our competitions that we have each year. And in the last 10 years, we have some of our important highlights to show what these competitions have achieved. So in these last, what are we on? We're on 38. So in the last 37 competitions, we have awarded 337 grants to teams of 597 higher education institutions, or HEI, in 26 countries and in 49 U.S. states. And those programs have benefited over 10,000 students and counting. Since the beginning of the Innovation Fund in 2013, we've received 1,200 grant proposals submitted. And we have grown our innovation network to include over 2,300 higher education institutions. And over that time, we've received over $20 million from public and private sectors to support the Innovation Fund and its competitions since 2013. So you heard me mention a little bit about the Innovation Network. If you are thinking of joining the Innovation Network, if you're thinking of submitting a proposal for either this competition or any of our future competitions, or if you're just interested in keeping up with the news that we have on the 100K Innovation Fund, we always recommend that you start by joining the Innovation Network on our website. And as you can see here, we have a little screenshot of what it would look like once you reach our website. Over here on the right side, you'll see there's a section that says Join the Innovation Network, or you can also look it up at this link over here. And by joining the network, you'll be able to be connected with those over 2,300 higher education institutions, not just in the US and not just in Latin America, but across the Western Hemisphere. And you'll also receive news and updates about our upcoming competitions, conferences, webinars, and more. So once you join this innovation network and you're thinking of applying to one of our competitions, how do you apply? The first step is to find our online application portal through our website. As you can see here, I do have the link again and a screenshot of where you can find the application portal on our website. So that's right here in the grants section of our website and under application portal. Once you reach the application portal, the next step for you would be to create a profile for yourself, for your institution. And that includes basic information, your name, your job title, your institution, the address of your institution, all of this information. And within this form, step 3 is to use an appropriate email for this section right here that says work email. So this email is the email that we will be using to communicate with you about any proposals that you submit through the application portal for any grant competition. And your account and your proposal that you do submit can only be accessed with this one email that you put right here in the work email section. So please make sure that you use an appropriate email that is closely monitored and that you have constant access to. Sometimes we have institutions that have grant offices that have a shared login. Sometimes we have just professors submitting proposals and they have also shared login. Or sometimes we have a project director that is in charge of everything within the project, such as project implementation, reporting, and the proposal itself, and that they will have the login for this. But again, this is the only email that will be associated with any proposal or any application that you submit. So please make sure that you're using an appropriate email. For step 4, after you complete your profile form, you'll need to complete the required tasks. The first task here is the actual application form, and that will be the form that asks questions like, what is your proposed program? Who are your partners? What are the objectives of your program, etc. And here is where you will submit in PDF form your actual technical narrative, your budget, your letters of recommendation or letters of support, and other documents. In the second required task, this is the partner information request form. And this is a request sent to your partner institutions, which will send them an email with a link to fill out their profile. And their profile, once you send them this request, will be then linked to your application. Unfortunately, they won't be able to see the same things that the primary applicant will be seeing, but it will be linked already. So we will have easy access to see who your partners are in this proposal and what their contact information is. And that is a general overview of how to actually apply for any of our grant competitions and how to submit a proposal, where to go to begin that process. If you have any other questions on our application guidelines, specifically, you can visit our website, and we do have the link right here for the format that we ask your proposals to be in, etc. And you can always attend upcoming webinars. So in terms of this competition, this is the last webinar because our competition closes at the end of July, but we always have upcoming competitions and new webinars and even new workshops in the future. So you can check for that under events, our events page. And you can also join our innovation network to receive those newsletters in your email. So let's talk a little bit about eligibility for this competition. As I covered before, this will be the U.S. or the United States Brazil Climate Inclusive Education Grant Competition, which was launched on April 24th, 2024, and is open until July 31st, 2024. So you have a little bit over 2 weeks to join this call. For available grants for this competition, we do have 7 grants available of up to $40,000 US for this competition. And that is for your team. So 1 grant will be for 1 proposal that is not per institution. For eligible partnerships, as we mentioned before, this competition is U.S. Brazil. So the only eligible countries in this competition are institutions from the U.S. or institutions from Brazil together in a team. And for the actual partnerships that we require, the required partnership is at least a team of 1 U.S. higher education institution and 1 Senai higher education or innovation institution. And so that means that you must submit a proposal, including your institution, which can be of either of these, and 1 institution here in this required partnership from the other country. So for example, if you are a Senai higher education institution, then you would need at least 1 U.S. partner from a college or university, and the other way around. But we also do have a recommended partnership. And so that would be 1 U.S. higher education institution, 1 Senai higher education or innovation institution, and 1 Brazilian higher education institution that is not Senai. So that is our recommended partnership, because we want to be able to expand the teams and the proposals that you submit. Beyond this, you can always grow your team. You can always make your team bigger and add more institutions, as long as you meet the required partnership, which is 1 institution from the US and 1 Senai institution from Brazil. For program components. So what is your program? What does it actually need to have? Higher education institutions that are submitting a proposal should use the grant resources outlined to, number 1, implement new inclusive exchange and training programs between the US and Brazil in climate-related fields of study, and start, sustain, or expand a strategic, ambitious climate action project that leverages the unique capacity and skills of the higher education institution community. So that is 2 program components, or 2 main program components. And there is more information about program components and an outline of what we're looking for in the request for proposals, which is on our website in English and in Portuguese. Some of the eligible thematic areas here, because I could not fit all of them in 1 slide. are themes such as biodiversity protection, climate justice, climate technology, environmental protection, renewable energy, and more. So there are a lot more eligible thematic areas. And please read the request for proposals for more information and for an expanded list of eligible themes that your program can be on. For additional requirements and considerations for this competition. In terms of program design, for level of study, your students can be at any level of post-secondary education. So as long as they are after their secondary education, they can participate in these programs. So that means undergraduate students, graduate level students, or doctoral level students can all participate. For student credit, students must receive some level of academic credit from their home institution during or as a result of the proposed program. And this is required for all institutions aside from Senai institutes that do not operate on a credit basis. But what this is here for is we want to see that your programs actually do benefit students and that the students are working towards their graduation by participating in these programs. And lastly, our diverse students. So special consideration will be given to proposals that do focus on benefiting underserved, non-traditional, and/or diverse student populations. And through that, we do ask institutions when you submit a proposal that you include a student diversity recruitment plan and how you're actually going to recruit underserved student populations at your institutions specifically. And we do have a template for this student diversity recruitment plan on our website on the format page. In terms of student mobility. So we do require in-person student mobility to be an aspect of your program. And in that sense, bi-directional student travel is preferred. So we do want to see the goal of these competitions is to see students from the U.S. and from Brazil travel to the other country and create these exchange programs for the students from each institution. And for your programs to be chosen, there is no minimum or maximum number of students that you need to send to the other country. And there's no minimum or maximum duration of stay that the students must have at the other country to be able to win a grant from the 100K Innovation Fund. Quickly, I want to go over a competition timeline because we are close to the application deadline. So, as I mentioned before, the application deadline for this specific competition is July 31st, 2024 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. So you do have still a little bit of time to formulate your projects and to find a partner. Once you submit a proposal, the notification of the status of your proposal will be given in October 2024 after the proposal review process. Then the winners will be announced and we will be awarding grant funds to winners between November and December of 2024. And lastly, the period of performance will be January 1st, 2025 to January 31st, 2026. And this is a very important period to remember because this is when your program should take place. So in your proposal, you should be including travel dates that are within this period of performance. For example, you can have a course that your students take from February to April, and then your students travel in May 2025. But all of that needs to happen, or however you decide to create your program, it needs to happen between January 1st, 2025 and January 31st, 2026. And how can you find a partner institution? Now that we are nearing the last 15 or so days of this competition, we know that finding a partner institution can be very difficult. So we always recommend one of our greatest tools is using Education USA as a resource. So we recommend that you look to find an Education USA advising center near you, and they do have offices all over Latin America. So they do have advising centers near you, most likely. And they will be a great resource, and they have been a great resource in past competitions. The next thing that you can do is join the 100K Innovation Network. As I said before, we have over 2,300 higher education institutions in our innovation network, and we have a directory full of these institutions. And so when you join the network, you have access to that directory so that you can look for partners that are interested in the same kinds of programs that you are. And third, you can connect with other people from this webinar. And so that's why we recommend to send a message in the chat box introducing yourself if you're interested in finding a partner. Let people know where you're coming from, what your institution is looking to do, or what themes you're looking at creating a program around. And hopefully you can find other people who are also interested and can create that project team with you. And from this webinar, we also will be sending a list of higher education institutions and contacts that are interested in creating potential partnerships. If you attended past webinars and you have received this list, and if you, well, you're here, so you registered for this webinar, but once you register for this webinar, you should have clicked if you were interested in having your information shared and if you're interested in finding a partner. From that information, we create that list of institutions looking for partners and we send it out to everyone who registered for the webinar. And we do update that list after each webinar and upload that to our innovation network under the forum for this specific competition. So as of right now, I believe we have almost over 220 contacts on that list. So if you haven't been able to find a partner, then that will be a great resource for you. And lastly, if you are having a lot of trouble finding a partner institution, then feel free to contact us at our email, 100kstrongamericas@partners.net. And if we do know of anyone that is also looking for a partner, we will help to connect you, or we'll send you that list, the master list of everyone looking for partners. And I'd like to cover some frequently asked questions during these webinars. So some of the questions that we get are, how many institutions can be involved in my proposed project? And like I said before, there's no limit to the number of institutions that can be involved in your project, as long as you do reach that required partnership of just one institution from the US and one Senai institution from Brazil. Once you have those two minimum partners, you can always add more institutions and have a program between multiple institutions. The second question is, which institution has to submit the application? So either institution or either partner can submit the application as long as they are from the eligible countries. But please keep in mind that the institution that submits the application will be considered the primary applicant and will be the one that will be responsible for contacting us for any questions, for revising the proposal, receiving the grant funds, and reporting back to Partners of the Americas on a quarterly basis and after the completion of your project. So there are a lot more responsibilities that come with being the institution that submits the application as opposed to just being a partner. The third question is, can we include a partner that is not from the US or Brazil? And for this specific Innovation Fund competition, only institutions that are for the U.S. and Brazil are eligible to apply and be beneficiaries. But that doesn't mean that in future competitions you can't apply by being from a different country. Sometimes we have competitions that allow other countries to apply as beneficiaries, even though they aren't the main eligible countries. And sometimes we have competitions that have multiple eligible countries aside from the US. And if you are from a different country here today, then please just stay up to date through the Innovation Network with us for future competitions that might be regarding your country. And the last question is, how many proposals can my institution submit? So there is no limit to the number of proposals that you can submit. However, a single institution will not receive more than 2 grants per grant competition. So that means that in this specific grant competition, you can submit as many proposals as you want. But if you submit 10 proposals, the most that you can receive in one competition, in this competition, will be 2. And submitting more does not always mean that you have a higher chance of winning a grant. But if you have multiple different programs that you would like to propose, then feel free. And we do not want to award more than 2 grants to a single institution, just so that we can still have a diversity of institutions that are winning our grants. And for the last section, we have proposal evaluation criteria. So quickly, I just wanted to share with you again the evaluation criteria that we look at and that our review committee looks at when they are evaluating your proposals. So the first part of your proposal that you'll be submitting in PDF form will be your technical narrative. And this makes up 80% of the evaluation criteria. That will be 15 pages maximum and will include a cover page, a table of contents, an executive summary and program description, a sustainability plan about how you plan to continue your program past this grant year, a capacity challenges and opportunities section about your institution and partners, and a monitoring and evaluation plan. After that, you'll also submit a budget, which will be in the form of an Excel sheet, which can be maximum 5 pages. And that includes the budget summary table, which is the Excel, and a descriptive budget narrative explaining your budget costs and how you came to those calculations. In this section, we also take into consideration low indirect costs under the grant funds. So we recommend that if you have high indirect costs, that you place that under your cost share portion of the program. But if you have indirect costs under grant funds that you want to use our grant funds for, then we recommend that it be no more than 20% of the grant funds. And lastly, there is a supporting documents section, which requires you to submit letters of support from your institution as well as all of your partner institutions in your project, and the biography and resume of the project team, which we do require to be 2 pages maximum per person. And the resumes do not need to be extensive and be 10 pages. We ask for 2 pages maximum because we just want to see the highlights of the resume of the project team to show that they do have the capabilities to lead this project. And if you have any additional materials that you think would help reviewers understand your project better, then you can also submit that in this section. And here on the right side, you can see more of a visual of how the evaluation criteria plays into the proposal review process. You can also find all of this information on our website under the format page. And some of the last helpful resources before we turn it over to questions. We have our website here, our website link. If you're looking again to understand the format of the proposal that you'll be submitting, please go ahead and visit this link and our website. If you want to read the request for proposals, which we do have in English and in Portuguese, feel free to visit this link, which is our open competitions page. And if you want to read or see materials from the last webinars for this competition, we had 3 already, then please visit this link over here on our webinars page. And through this, you should find all of the information necessary to help you begin the process of creating your proposal, finding your project partners, and submitting a successful, hopefully grant-winning proposal. Just as a note also, since I mentioned the request for proposals will be in English and in Portuguese, all of your actual proposal documents should be submitted in English. And that is because our proposal reviewers do not all speak Portuguese or even Spanish for other competitions. So please make sure that all of your proposal materials are submitted in English. Okay, so now that we've gotten to the question and answer section of our webinar, I think that we can take a pause since we do have our partners from the embassy here today with us. Maybe we can have Leonardo introduce yourself and just say a little bit, about the embassy and why we're working together for this competition while people formulate their questions that they have and throw that in the Q&A box.
Thanks, Mariana. Yes, I'm Leonardo Nardon. I'm the Senior Education Outreach Specialist here at the Public Affairs section at the U.S. Embassy in Brasilia. I've been working with 100K for a good part of almost 9 years now. And it's good to see that we have a good number of people attending this webinar. My role is to connect Brazil and U.S. Higher education institutions. So on the 100,000 strong competition rounds, I think of myself as a facilitator of connections. So if you have an interest and you have an idea for a proposal, but do not know an institution in the U.S. or an institution in Brazil or a Sinai institution, of course, you can reach out to the team at Partners. You can reach out to the team at Sinai, but you can also drop me a line. I can, circulate among my contacts and try to find suitable partners for your proposals. This has helped well. This has worked well in the last competition, and I think please think of me as an asset that can be used as a tool in your toolbox. If you have a proposal, if you have an idea of a proposal and want to bounce ideas off of me or are looking for partners in the US or in Brazil, please feel free to reach out. I'll do whatever I can to help you connect to those institutions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leo. And sorry again for the technical difficulties.
Thank you and welcome, Leo.
Yeah, we're happy that you were able to make it.
Thank you. Thank you all for your support.
Of course. So let me go ahead and reshare my screen again while we get some of our questions going. Again, if you have any questions that you would like to ask before the close of the application process, then please submit any questions you have in the Q&A box. And as I said at the beginning of the webinar, if there are any questions that we do not address in this webinar, then they will be answered in our question and answer report, which will be sent to the email that you use to register for this webinar within 5 to 6 business days. And if you realize you have any other questions after the competition or after this webinar, then you can always refer to our grant FAQs page for answers to the most commonly asked questions. And just also as a, just to clarify, any questions that have been answered in this webinar will also show up in the question and answer report, not just the ones that didn't get answered. So they will all be there. Okay. And also as a reminder, please do not send questions in the chat box because we will not be checking the chat box. Please only send questions in the Q&A box. Okay, so let me look at, I know we have had some questions already answered. I see a question here from Marcela saying, please explain the budget criteria one more time. How can the institutions manage the shared costs? So for the budget criteria, we did go a little bit more into detail in a past webinar. So if you want to see that presentation that shows what goes into the budget criteria, I would actually suggest to go onto our website. Under events, you'll see our webinars page, and you can scroll down and see a past webinars. And I believe that is in our tips and strategies for writing a 100K Klima proposal. In that webinar, we do go over it a little bit more, but essentially the criteria for the budget, there is not too many requirements. The requirement number one is that you do have a cost share included in your budget. So that means that your institution is putting some sort of funds towards your proposed project. But for example, you can use those funds toward faculty salaries and things like that, for any extra time they're putting into the proposal, or items that are more administrative, so that you can sort of show what the institution is providing versus what you will be using the grant funds for. And for the grant funds section, and for the cost share, it is required that you have some level of cost share, but there is no specified number. However, we do recommend a 1-to-1 match so that you can show that your institution will be able to continue the program past this 100K grant fund. And then in terms of grant funds, we recommend that you use grant funds for most of the student costs to benefit students. So that can be for student travel, accommodations, visa documents, and applications. It can be for rental of classrooms, of equipment, any materials you'll need for courses online or in person. And you can also include indirect costs in the budget outline. How you specifically manage your shared costs will actually be up to your institutions, since we will be working with the primary institution that submitted the application. So that institution will receive the entire grant, and they will be the ones to distribute the grant funds to their partners. So the way that you manage that will be actually up to you. So you can decide if you want your primary institution to buy everything and use the grant funds there, or if they want to send it to their partners in a specific way. And let me know if you have any other questions about that. For the next question that I see here, I see someone asks, we have a 26% indirect cost overhead. Is 20% the absolute limit for indirect costs? So as I said, the 20% limit is a recommendation. We just recommend that you do not use more than 20% of the grant funds for indirect costs. So if you'd like, you can split up your overhead costs between grant funds and cost share, if your institution can put funds towards the overhead costs. Or you can write a really good proposal and take your chances with the 26% overhead costs in the grant funds portion. There's no specific limit. It's just something that our reviewers view more favorably if there is lower amount of indirect costs that will be paid for by the grant funds that we are giving. Okay, another question I have here is, could we have a a postdoc and a student from the U.S. side. So like I said before, your students can be at any level of post-secondary education as long as they are students. So they can be an undergraduate student, a graduate student, or a doctoral student. So they can be studying for their master's degree, for a PhD, a JD, any sort of those degrees from the US side. And if you have other faculty members that are working with the students that would like to travel, they can also join the program and travel. They can be faculty members, staff members, administrators, and they can definitely be a part of the program and travel and benefit as well, as long as you are having a focus on the students benefiting from these programs. Okay. So another question is, if the students have completed all courses, is it okay if credits are not earned? So on the US side or on the Brazilian institution side, we do require academic credit to be earned, but that can be in different ways. So it does not have to be specifically a course required for graduation. It can count as an elective course, an extracurricular course. It doesn't have to be a letter grade. It can be credit or no credit. As long as they are earning something at your institution by participating in these programs. So we just want to make sure that the students are not being derailed from their graduation by participating in these programs, because we know that that is usually a barrier for a lot of students. So we want to make sure that they are earning some sort of credit from their home institutions. Okay, so I have a question from Edward Lowe, and he asks, my institution received a 100K grant 5 years ago for an unrelated U.S. Brazil partnership. To develop a competitive proposal, how can I address that my new partnership will strengthen and build upon that previous grant? So if you do have a previous partnership that is unrelated to this one, or that is the program is unrelated to this one, that actually can benefit you tremendously, because we do have a section in the proposal that is a institutional capacity and challenges and opportunities section. And in that section, you can actually touch on that partnership. You have the capacity to administer a program and to formulate a strong partnership with a Brazil institution, because you've already received a grant 5 years ago for a different partnership. So that is definitely something that you can address, and that will benefit you. And if it is a similar program that you are applying to, then you can also include some information about the previous program, but you will need to make sure that you include what parts of this program are different, what parts have been expanded, and what parts are innovative now that you did not have in previous programs. Okay, so I have a question from Jonathan here as well, from Senai Climatech, saying they have been writing a project, however, they can't contact the professor that they have been collaborating with. So how can they proceed? So unfortunately, we aren't able to help if there is a problem with communication with your partner institution. However, I would look for a different contact at that institution to see if they can help you move forward. Or I would also see if your partners are open to adding a third or fourth institution to your project team. And that way you can make sure that even if that professor has decided to not work with you last minute, that you do have another partner, another backup partner, and you're still eligible to receive that grant. Okay, I do have a last question that's in Portuguese. So I personally don't speak Portuguese, so I can't read it. But if any of my my partners here do know the answer to that or can answer that, then please feel free. Oh, I think, they just sent it in English, so perfect, yeah. Thank you. Okay, so this question is, good afternoon, just to confirm, please, the maximum number of pages is 15 pages, would be added up all of the topics. Okay, I see. So would that 15 pages be the technical summary plus the topics plus the expenses? So the 15 pages will be for your technical narrative, which will include, let me actually go back on my presentation, which will include these sections here. So that's the cover page and table of contents, of course, the executive summary and program description. That one is usually a few pages long, a sustainability plan, the capacity challenges and opportunities plan, and the monitoring and evaluation plan. So those sections together should make up the 15 pages. The budget can be 5 pages maximum on top of the 15 pages. And then the letters of support, the biography, and additional materials there's no page limit, but that can be any number of pages on top of the 20 pages. So we do just put the 15-page maximum for the technical narrative part, this part up here, because we ask for a lot of other documents, and your proposal will already be combined more than 20 pages. Probably around 30 or 40, or around 30 pages. So I hope that made sense. That 15 pages is for this part of the proposal, and that will be the PDF proposal. And they are in separate sections because you do submit them in separate sections. So the technical narrative will be a PDF that you submit of up to 15 pages. And then there's a second section that says submit your budget summary table. You'll submit that. Then there's a separate section that says submit your budget narrative. You'll submit that. Then letters of support, you can submit there. Biography, resume, you can submit there. And then there's the last section that says any additional materials, and you'll submit that separately. Okay. Do we have any other questions? On my side, I don't see any more questions, but we do have about 4 minutes left. So if anybody has any last minute questions, then please feel free to throw them in the Q&A box right now before we leave for the day. And while anyone is writing the questions, I would just like to thank everyone again for joining us today at this webinar. We know that you're taking time out of your work days to join us today and to ask these questions. So thank you very much for that. If you have any questions or clarifications, please feel free to contact our Innovation Fund team or any of our partners who said that they're also available. And we will try to get back to you as quickly as possible to make sure that you'll be able to submit your proposals for this grant competition that's coming up very soon. Okay, I don't see any more questions. Like I said before, if you have any other questions later on that you remember, feel free to visit. We have here our grants FAQs page that has our most frequently asked questions there as well. And feel free to visit our website to read the request for proposals and to read about the format of the proposals that you should be submitting. Okay. And I think that's pretty much it for our questions. So thank you again, everybody, for joining us today. I think we'll give you back 2 minutes of your time. Thank you so much to our partners as well at the U.S. Department of State, at the U.S. Embassy in Brasilia, at Senai. Thank you, Victor, on my team at Partners of the Americas, for joining us, for giving us the information, and for your continued support. And again, thank you, everyone, to all of our attendees who are here with us today. So have a good Friday and have a good weekend, everybody.
Thank you, Mariana. Bye, Gustavo.
you.
Bye.
Good luck with the proposals.
Yes, good luck.